as we did last year. We had 2 in March and 5 up to the year up to March. Those are the same style burglaries I've been talking about, where the actor, these burglaries are happening at night, where the actor goes into a unsecured door or a window. They're searching for car keys that are usually located in the kitchen area. They take the keys and then they use it to take the car. As these high-end vehicles, these vehicles that you cannot take without a key. So now they're doing these burglaries where they're coming in and getting the keys, and it's happening all over the state. The people that are doing it usually do not want confrontation with the homeowner, so they wait till the homeowner sleep and it's late at night, go in. And I mean, we've had incidents where there was forced entry, but that's rare. Usually they're looking for an open door or an open window. So that's the increase we're having in burglaries. We are having a huge increase in thefts. A lot of it, we're getting a lot of shopliftings. I'm seeing dollar store, the Walgreens, the stores up and down Spring. We're seeing an uptick in shoplifting, but also we are getting car rummagings where the vehicles are still unlocked, going in, taking proceeds from inside the vehicle. And also we're seeing, we still get our occasional package thefts and such. So that is a big increase from last year. If you see there, 2024, we had 30 up to that date, and now we're up to 59 already to date. Auto thefts are you can see here, it looks like an increase up to March, but for the year in total, we are actually down in auto thefts, just street auto thefts. And so that's pretty much the tell of the tape of March. But if I go, I don't know if you have the year-to-date UCR. Maybe number 10. I think 10, maybe. Okay, that's yeah, go up 1. A down 1. There you go. Yep. That's for March, but I have a more up-to-date version of that year-to-date. So year-to-date robberies. Last year we had 3, now we have 1, so we have a decrease in that. Assaults are actually down. We've seen an increase in assaults last year, and and that's due to domestic violence. But we've seen almost a 50% decrease in assaults down this year. 36 last year at this time, 19 this year as assaults. Assaults are going down. The burglaries, as I said, are going up. We had 3 last year at this time. We're up to 7. And as I said, the thefts have gone up a lot. Last year at this time, we had 56. This year at this time, we have 81 thefts. Motor vehicle thefts have gone down. Last year at this time, we had 24. This year, we have 17. So that's the year-to-date UCR report.
Is there any messaging we can pass along to people in regards to maybe postcards, flyers, things that could go out in the weekly update to encourage people to move their bags, purses, whatever, away from their doors, and to use those little flappy things that most new windows have that only limit your window to being open to like 4 inches?
Yeah, so we put it out on the police department social media, but we're gonna extend that to put it out in the papers and also out to the township so they can put that out. Yeah, so we'll extend that as far as putting out information regarding how to safeguard package thefts and telling people to lock their doors for their vehicles and such. The shopliftings are up, but we do walkthroughs through these stores, and when we get calls, we're there. But yeah, that's see an uptick in that.
Mr. Worry, can you just add that to the weekly e-blast that goes out?
Yeah,
Thanks.
The sexual assault actually disturbs me, primarily because I'm an 18-year-old who takes a lot of Ubers every once in a while when she goes and visits her friends in other cities. Is there anything that can be done to kind of encourage, I don't know, Uber itself or people in the community to keep eyes out for this? Because this was obviously someone who was driving for the company that went and did this, allegedly did this to a baby, 19-year-old. How do we keep our kids safe or our passengers safe?
Well, the main thing is make sure it's a legitimate Uber. I went to the airport in Atlanta and I was looking for an Uber, and this guy came up to me, he was gonna give me a ride. He wasn't an Uber driver though. I quickly determined he was not. Um, Uber is pretty good with the app as far as who's picking you up, what kind of car it is, identifying the person. So I would say the main thing is just make sure it's legitimate. Also let people know where you're going, that you're getting in the car. You know, keep your phone on with somebody when you're in the back seat and you're riding with them. You know, and just you know, be careful. I mean, you know, again, this is under investigation. Again, as alleged, so we're still working. He has been identified at this point.
Okay.
can I just raise a procedural question? Can we get this off the screen because this has addresses on? And we shouldn't be putting addresses out on the public.
So far as that's been taken care of. The are there any things that we can serve or share with our local businesses, our small businesses, to help them kind of encourage, I don't know, like discourage the theft? Maybe encouraging them to have baskets out front so that they can have people visibly see what's coming in and going out. I'm just I'm astounded at the number because we've been really good this year, and then all of a sudden we're in the 50s, and that just came out of the blue. How can we help our local businesses not feel that burn?
Well, it's mostly the chain stores that this is happening in.
Right.
They have their own procedures. You know, they actually will not confront the person until they leave the store. They'll call us. So it's usually after the fact. So you know, after the fact, there's been occasions where we stop the person, identify the person, and they just want the proceeds back. Or you know, so we when we get the call, we respond there when we receive it, and we go from there. So the individual stores have their own procedures, but the Wawa shopliftings have gone down because we have the officer there. So
Right.
that's been a good deterrent. But again, it's usually the bigger stores, and they have their own way of handling that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Lululemon in Summit was having like, and it was starting this whole thing on social media, these thefts, but Lululemon doesn't want to report it. Like they don't, it's just their, you know, they don't, for whatever reason, it's like a cost of doing business to them with regard to the product, but the reputation is more important. So,
Okay.
So I was at the dollar store one afternoon and the people at the register were talking to each other and some people on the line, and they were pointing out who are the frequent flyers that steal stuff in the store. The one register person said, this guy coming in is coming in here to steal something and go out, and they're told not to confront the person, to just let it happen.
yeah, it's amazing.
But
Okay.
Chief, would there be any utility in having a conversation with the manager of Dollar Tree? I know it's happening there a lot.
Yeah, that was
People
just,
hanging out there.
I was trying to go in the Dollar Tree today and I couldn't because there was cars in the driveway and there were lit officer vehicles there. So I just opted to just get it tomorrow.
Yeah, we can speak to the manager of that store and other stores to see if there's anything else they need us to do as far as that.
Because I get it's like pennies compared to like most of them what they
Yeah.
actually bring in. But if you're a customer in the store and there's flashy lights, or in my case, I was gonna go to the store, but I saw the flashy lights and I was like, nope, not going.
Yeah.
That's another
Loss.
bottom line thing that affects it.
Yeah, but you know, I understand from the store's point of view, you know, you don't want your employees getting hurt,
Right. You know, they're not, their job is not to tackle.
right? And then that becomes a robbery. you know,
Right.
So, you know,
Chief, are there any instances in our, independently owned small businesses that?
I didn't, no, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing
Okay,
more
good.
the bigger stores,
They're hitting the chains.
chains.
Okay.
All right. Well, dang.
Chief, Chief, since you mentioned Wawa, can you give us a little status report on how it's working out since we've had the officers there? Are we getting less calls, less fights, less theft?
Yeah, so since we had the officer there, you remember the year before we had the officer, we had I think that's why we were seeing that this decrease in robberies, because the robberies were in that area. This spring in Chancellor, since the officer's been there, we've been steadily going down in robberies. Also with the DB arresting 3 suspects that we think were involved in those. So as far as the robberies went down, we are not seeing the calls for shoplifting like we are the other places. It's still a lot of traffic there at night, but we're not getting the calls because the officer there is either deterrent or handling the situation there as it comes up.
Yeah.
And what about the neighbor calls? Are we getting any?
That's decreased a lot too.
Yeah,
We're not
I've
getting
talked
as
to the
many
neighbors too.
calls as we used to.
Yeah, that's
So-
one of the things that the neighbors have actually shared with me. They're like, whatever happened with the Wawa has been great because they're not getting the garbage in their yards and no one's loitering in the parking lot like they used to.
Yeah.
So
And-
Chief, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Just to say that we get usually the same officers that take that job, so they know the situation, and they're Irvington's also helping us with that. They take they're still assisting us with that. And in the beginning it was kind of rocky. We're having a hard time trying to fill it, and the general manager was calling me, and when they were unable to fill it, but I haven't received a call from him probably in 2 or 3 months. So seems to be working pretty good.
Is there, so does Wawa have their own security? And excuse me if I should already know this.
They do. Yes, they do.
They do, and it's not
and-
enough to deter, so.
No,
they're-
their security guard is not.
Right.
No.
But they are there during the day when we're not there.
Okay,
So if they do observe something, they'll call us. But they do have a security guard there.
so this is not an off-duty officer on overtime doing it, this is
No.
one of your,
No,
Regular-
it's employed by Wawa. So Wawa
Yeah.
was a security guard.
no, I mean our people who are there at night,
Our people are there are guys.
right? But they're not
They're-
on overtime like for an event or road
No, the
construction.
Wawa pays for
Yeah,
the
they
officer
pay
to be there.
separately.
Oh, good, okay, that's what I want to know, thank you.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. I don't think we need to go through our the stats as far as like overtime, because looked at, there's none, not really.
Well, I'm sorry, I did have a question about the dispatcher. It looked like
Okay.
the hours
You
of
pull
the
'em up?
dispatcher.
Yeah, so so the dispatcher, where is it? 911 dispatch overtime. Again, that also includes the watch commander. So we are at a deficit on the weekends with a watch commander until we get till we do a few that's the sick time, until we get the until we shift our schedule. So we are at a deficit on certain days.
So you
Because
wanna go,
according to this sheet, you had like a 47% increase.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
it.
So is it between the shifts, the increased problem, or is it folks not coming in?
We're looking at the
So-
wrong sheet. Can we take this sheet off?
This
Yeah,
one
that's like,
on?
that's
This
it.
is inappropriate.
Okay, so yeah, so the 911 dispatch overtime is dispatch, but also it includes our watch commander. And our watch commander, so we're stacked during the week. During the weekend, we might have one watch commander. And if they want to take a day off, they are allowed to take that day off, which just causes overtime. So once we shift, we'll have more supervision on the weekends so that if a watch commander calls out, a sergeant can take that spot who's working that same shift, but we're not there yet.
How often does the watch commander call out?
Well, it's not calling out. They're allowed their vacation or their comp time. But on the weekends, we only have one. So if he calls out, that's automatic overtime.
All right, so hopefully with the changeover, that will change and improve, and we won't have as much happening. Because we're rolling into summer months, I'm assuming folks are setting aside their vacation days and making their plans and stuff. You're seeing in advance. People are putting the requests in, so scheduling can be a worked around. All of that.
Yeah, we do it as far as our contract and our SOPs and our concerns. So
All right. Thank you. Any other questions for Chief? Nope. Great. This meeting may actually go smooth. Mayor Adams and Administrator Wary and I had a conversation with the lead of the South Orange Rescue Squad in regards to potentially bringing them back as the EMS default for Maplewood. Cost wise, it works for us once the library is fully moved out of the annex that they've been using as the secondary location. They would be what they've offered us basically is like we will clean, fix, renovate, do all the stuff we need to do in that building so that we can use it in exchange for being your on-call. But there is something to be said about the additional expense because they're only available from, and correct me if I'm wrong, 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. If it's 6 to 6. So in the morning would have to be taken by another ambulance service organization or whatever. So we'd be looking at having them as a shared service with South Orange.
Well, there is no, we wouldn't be having a shared service with South Orange.
Well,
They
South
have no
Orange
con-
uses them.
Yeah, but they have no control over them. So you wouldn't have a shared service with South Orange. They're an independent group.
Mhm.
So right now they are our backup as it is. So if our ambulance goes out and we get a second call, the call goes 911. REMS, which is the dispatcher, would dispatch the South Orange Rescue Squad if they're available. If they're not available, then they would call the next on the list. Could be Union, it could be the hospital or wherever. So I'm not exactly sure how this becomes different, other than we're going to give them location to stage an ambulance here. Is that correct?
Correct. They're looking at having two on shift, one in South
Okay.
Orange and one in Maplewood.
Right, because that was the hang up before, is that they wanted to be designated because they want the calls. They don't want to have a crew there just sitting around.
Right.
So,
I
but
think,
but it's right now, unless we change the primary response from SEFD to them, then there's still going to be the secondary response.
Are they
Yeah.
secondary in South Orange or are they primary?
primary except for during the week.
Yeah, during the day, the South Orange has an arrangement with the hospital.
Right,
With the-
Robert Wood.
What?
Okay.
So, yeah, this is super preliminary. We're just, exploring to see what the possibilities are, not necessarily anything. I mean, really early discussions of just seeing what the situation is, where the money is, how much it costs, what the response time is. So, yeah, lot to talk about yet.
Right, and one of the concerns that was raised by not only the fire department, who I'd spoken to a couple of folks there, and local folks, was the idea of them being the secondary for a lot of things. Depending, and this is something that the lead had mentioned, the fact that there are some shifts that are well-staffed and some that aren't. And if something happens where the person is dispatching from their home instead of from the location, that could be the difference between minutes getting to a resident who needs support. And that could be fraught with tons of issues. So
Yeah, but I think I just want to push back on it because I think you have to be careful what you're saying. It doesn't work like that.
the way
If-
that he
if-
explained it to us, that's how the
Look,
currently is structured.
If South Orange is unable to be the secondary, then they let REMS know that they are not able to respond to calls. And then there's somebody else. So it's not like we're at the whim of somebody in South Orange to have to get to the ambulance and more seconds. It doesn't work like that. We're the primary. If South Orange is available, then REMS, the dispatcher, knows they're available and they will dispatch them. If they're not available, then they'll dispatch someone else. So I don't want to give the impression that somehow, if somebody's sitting home and not getting to the ambulance is going to lead to more time in our response. That's not the case. We're covered.
I know we're covered now. It's just that the potential of them, that was one of the things they lifted up. And I could be wrong because these are just the first conversation we've had with them. It did seem that that was what he had hinted at, that that was a concern of people.
We have a lot more homework.
A
so.
lot. So, we're entertaining this conversation primarily for expenses. The cost of having the South Orange Rescue Squad, or having them become the South Orange Maplewood Rescue Squad, would be something that could save us a lot of money on the back end. But it's initial stages. We just wanted to bring it up here so folks know the conversations are being had.
Listen, I'm very sorry. Maybe I'm being a little picky here, but that's not the case. There's no savings to have South Orange come in here. We don't pay for backup. So there's no savings. So
Okay.
I think if we're going to make this public, let's have it correct from the get-go.
Are the conversations not happening, including Mr. DeLuca, who has the vast knowledge in this, as he was the one who made the merger happen?
Yeah, we've had one conversation, so no, and he was not there.
Okay.
So,
And
the
who's
future-
they who are bringing up these concerns? Is it SCFD or South Orange Rescue?
Rescue. So for our next conversation, it sounds like we need to have Mr. DeLuca there so that some more clarity can be brought to this whole thing. If you're willing to be a part of it. And that's that. We just wanted to introduce it. That is something we're looking into. All right, next on the agenda is the commercial trucks. It was brought up yesterday after probably about a half dozen emails I got from Lightning Brook neighborhood. Chief Sally, I know this is probably something you've gotten phone calls about from members of the community in regards to idling trucks in and around our community, from PSC&G doing their repairs, and the industrial offices and buildings over on Rutgers in general. There are consistently trucks running when they're supposed to be off, per the ordinances that have been placed in the township, and it's not being enforced. And so we would like to, or at least I would like to, on behalf of the people who live in that community, have reached out, encourage the officers, particularly the one that's usually there, because there's one or two that are usually hanging out by the intersection of Rutgers and Newark Way at one of the businesses that's not always open, to enforce that. But they're sitting far back enough to where they're not probably seeing it happen.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, we have seen, received a few complaints about the idling trucks. But, as far as Lightning Brook, in general, year to date, we issued, and this includes, overnight parking, of course. We issued over, 500 tickets in that area. We do have to pick up on the idling. I do not see, a significant amount of idling summonses issued.
Yeah,
But there has been a, significant amount of detail and, officers being down there. But, I do, need to express more that if they see the idling, that we do need to issue for the idling, especially down on the Rutgers.
Yeah.
We're down there, but, for some reason it's not being, taken care of in that way, but I'll do better in, expressing that that needs to be, enforced.
thank you. Because they're
Or
doing
some-
great on the stop sign. I will say that coming to that intersection, I
Yeah.
don't feel like I'm afraid to
they're
make the
doing-
turns I need
yeah.
to make because there's
And-
a police officer there.
And they're doing great. They're doing great in the Lightning Brook section. I mean, I'm seeing the summonses a lot in those streets, those internal streets down there. We've been down there for the last couple of months, pretty good. But for some reason, Rutgers has been in that specific the trucking there. Enforcement needs to pick up there.
Well, I'm gonna flip it because I'm gonna go to item 4, because you're taking care of Lightning Brook, but downtown Maplewood and Springfield Avenue, the double parking of mostly from like DoorDash and Uber Eats, those guys, they just stop in the middle of the road and go inside. And whether it's a quick pickup or 5 minutes, they're
Yeah.
blocking a lane of traffic. And I haven't personally seen or heard anyone being ticketed for that. And it's happening more and more.
Yeah, so we were issuing there pretty good. We had a rash of rim thefts during that time frame. So we kind of shifted and we're targeting patrols to the areas where we believe this was taking place. I won't go any further than that, but that's where that specific detail was getting shifted to and wasn't really enforcing like they were before in the village. But we'll get back to that.
Yeah. I can just, from my personal experience, I was in the village on Friday and Saturday, and on both days, there's the handicap parking space at the intersection of Maplewood Avenue and where Leo's Nails is. I can't remember that intersection. I forget sometimes. There was consistently a car parking in the stripe section
Mhm.
of the Maplewood Avenue, but with enough of its front into the parking spot of the handicap space to where no one could park in it.
Okay. Yep. So we'll bring the detail back down there for a certain time, and then we'll go back to where we were looking for this rash of incidents we're having.
Right,
Yeah.
it's dinner time. It's people
Yeah.
getting dinner deliveries.
There's a lot of downtowns are dealing with this, chief, so something to like brainstorm about how to effectively enforce and deter, because I mean, if it needs to, I have no inclination to set aside any pickup parking like we did during COVID with the 15-minute, but something to at least keep an eye on, see where the target areas are, and maybe we can make them go somewhere else. I don't know, just something to put on your radar to try to make better, because they are starting to just double park in the lane.
Yeah.
You know, like somebody waiting for a parking spot.
Right, and there's already enough folks down there trying to find parking. It's hard enough.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
have to swerve into the opposite lane of traffic to get around a car is much. So yeah, I would say that, and also in front of Bill and Harry's. That's the other spot.
Yeah.
Ani Ramen's deliveries are pretty kicking, and they've got a lot. Dogs off leash in parks. Missy, well, sorry, our Recreation Advisory Committee talked about this, and also we talked about it in Health and Community Services. There are signs, and they're very lovely, but they kind of blend in to the background. So they're not being really encouraged, because now that a lot more people are getting out into our parks and stuff, we've seen an uptick in dog bites. We've seen an uptick of people calling and complaining about dogs just off leash because people are playing fetch with their pooch.
Do
So
you have any coverage in the park, Chief?
Hmm?
What was
I
that?
was asking, Chief, if you have any coverage in the park, like for,
Yeah, we do walkthroughs. When we get the calls, I looked them up. Most of the time when
Right.
officers get there, the owner and the dog are gone.
Yeah,
But we
right,
do, but we do checks of the parks. Yeah, and some of some of the calls come through the health department. Some of the calls are delayed. So but we will continue our checks through the park and look for the unleashed canines.
all right. Because I was just thinking if we
Well,
could
is there
put for
early
additional
morning?
signage. Hmm?
Early,
early morning, Chief, if there's somebody out that can just take a walk through the park. I mean, super early, like somebody on patrol at 6 o'clock.
okay, that early? Okay, not before,
Yeah.
okay, yep.
When I do my laps at 7, there's usually a dog in the field at the Heart. And the guy just throws his ball to him and stuff. It's after their walk, and he's there every day. And I mean, he's a neighbor, so I don't want to rat him out technically, but at the same time, he's violating
Yeah.
procedure. He's not supposed to be out there, because if a kid decided they wanted to go in the playground, in the field, they can't, because that dog's running. So yeah, enforcement. I guess I'm gonna take this to comms and ask and see if they would consider maybe making another little flyer or something that we can put on the bulletin boards to encourage folks to keep their dogs on leash and use South Mountains Dog Park if they really want to have free time where their dog is off leash. Because there's a space there, but they have to go to it to use it.
I just want to note that we in Communications Committee also have agreed to be pushing this narrative through our social media and our emails and all the different channels that we, push out notifications about. So we'll be doing that too.
Thank you. Because I don't want to punish anybody or anybody's dog for being a dog, but at the same time, kids are kids, and they've got they've got more rights and personally to be in the park and playing and running around, I think, than a canine. So, you gotta follow the rules. And I don't know too many kids that go around biting people. I mean, there's a couple, but there's not as many as dogs, and the risk is there. So we want to make sure people stay safe and feel comfortable coming to the park, even if there are animals there. The cooling stations. I know last year you guys had signs up, which was great. But we're starting to get closer to the time where I think the sun's gonna just make its decision to stick around and be heavy for a while. So I would love to create, or at least start distributing or putting out in our weekly blast, not only the cooling station at the Heart, but that the police station is another option for folks when the weather gets to be warm and you need a space to go. We don't want people getting sick just being outside. So if we could, and again, something else to push the comms, if they could create something simple to put out there to help it would be great.
We have information from last year that we put out anytime we have forecasted excess of heat, and the county does a good job of letting us know when they're looking at heat watches. We also keep an eye out ourselves, especially in the summer months. We can in advance of that let people know. Want to make clear though, the police department's used just as a staging area until we get
Them to
cooling
Dart.
centers open. Yeah, so but obviously that if they went to the police department, we would let them know that. And that's always included in the announcements that we put out as the hot weather comes around.
All right.
And I'll get some, Candace had some, excuse me, Ms. Davenport had some good information at the meeting yesterday, the township committee meeting yesterday on heat advisory, heat stroke, good graphics, and we can include those this year. I know we had some of that information, but not those graphics, and we'll be sure to include those graphics this year.
Yeah, that would be great to actually even just have for like Mayfest or whatever, something, hey, when you're out, if you're feeling these symptoms, be aware.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. Uh, public comment. Is there anyone here besides us?
We have one member of the public.
All
So if the member of the public would like to speak in public portion, please raise your hand now. I see no hands, Ms. Craig.
All right, well, let's move through public comment. I have no items for executive session, but I don't know if there's anything in particular that any of you would like to bring up that we should move there. Otherwise, we could bypass that and move to adjourn because we covered it all. Oh,
Just quick,
George.
just real quick, we're still on Parker Avenue as well, so we're doing many details over at Parker Avenue, enforcing over there as well, so Parker, Lightning Brook, we'll add the village, and we are out there and still doing enforcement in those areas. Beach Street was a place of topic that's pretty much cleared up. We resolved that, so.
Yeah, and just
And yeah, and I want to thank everybody coming to our award ceremony, our first annual Maplewood Police Department award ceremony. We gave out several Valor Awards, which the Valor Award is the highest honor an officer can get, and that's them risking their lives for others. And we had quite a few Valors. Just to highlight one, during Hurricane Ira, we had an officer trapped in a vehicle. We had a father and daughter trapped. And we had an officer able to locate a surfboard with another officer, Officer Bowen and Officer Cruz, and we're able to bring those people back to safety. We also had Officer Rob Smith and Sergeant DeFazio were able to take residents out of a burning house and went in several times and took people out. Also, Officer Verdun did it on a separate incident. So that's just to highlight a few, but if you were there, you heard the many stories of what these guys do every day. And so it was good to honor those guys, and we'll do it every year.
can we put out a press release about that?
Well,
Yeah,
Honestly, I heard about the surfboard and we're like, ooh la la, when it happened a couple days later. But this whole officer running in 3 times to get people, I heard it for the first time at
yeah, well,
the-
they were actually 700 Club recipients for the Valor Award for that job. So it was at the time. Remember, we're going back like 9 years, so some of these
Okay.
jobs had some time on it. But at the time, they were, the other organization recognized them. But we did have a tap into there, so I think they're going to do something for that as well. So
Well, cool. Well, I hope in the future, as far as things happening, that we push for that stuff because with
yeah,
so many people feeling like there's nothing but problems, but again, if it bleeds, it leads. People want to hear the bad stories more than they want to hear the good. But I think if we push a lot of the good stuff out there, that more people will be less averse to having law enforcement in the community and actively involved in things than they have. So
Chief, I just want to thank you and your crew for creating the Jimmy Duvall Award. That was
Oh, yeah.
really,
yeah. All credit to Deputy Chief Malloy and,
Okay.
for setting that up. So she did. She set all that up. So
no, it was really nice, and I'm sure Jimmy would be very honored.
he
Yeah.
would be. He's a good guy. All right. Is there anything of concern that anyone else on the committee would like to bring up that was a part of the agenda? If not, then I move that we adjourn.
Go next.
All right, enjoy your evening. Go next. I'm not watching basketball this year. I made the promise.
No, Nova.
In the hours of my life. I don't,
2018 champion starters are the
I
starters.
I don't have that many hours in my life.
They had like 80, 90 of the 120 points the other night, the three Nova guys.
You're-
Just saying. Sorry, Chief. I see.